one of the things I want to say first off, I'm just one of the people at the Polytech that's working on this, and Esther's on screen as well. So Esther, feel free to jump in where you need to. And there's a whole team that's working on this, so it sort of feels a little bit disingenuous me representing the organisation with my little slice of it. But I'll give you my little slice of where we're at the moment, and then just I'm expecting to have lots of questions, so we'll go ahead. Is it going to progress? No, it's not going to progress for me now. Oh, there you go. Hang on, maybe down there. No cursor. Yes. So it's a standard, I'll try not to move my cursor. It's a standard 3-year degree, construction management degree. That's not its proper name, but it's a construction management degree, 3 years, 360 credits at level 7. So fairly standard sort of thing. But from there, it changes. So we have a construction management diploma paired like many polytechs have. It's running really, really well. It's got lots of graduates going through. Many of the graduates are actually already in work, in construction management work, and it's operating, but it's operating on a distance learning mode, which is our standard mode, ODFL mode. So the intention is to have that diploma fully embedded within the degrees the first 2 years. Then we have the final year. The final year is, if it's going to progress for me, is in work only. So in discussions with Institute of Builders and a few others, what we want to make sure is that we have people that have on-site experience during the period. So it could be possible to do a degree and not actually set foot on site. And the idea being that we have a bit of flexibility there. Now, the final year, in principle, is an in-work only thing, right? So the idea being that you've got a job in a construction management office or somewhere where you can get that experience, right? So we're not limiting it to that. Somewhere where you can get the experiences and you are able to apply that learning to your learning at work, to your learning. I'm not being very erudite here, am I? To your learning, right? And you're able to use that experience for your assessments. So that then says to us, well, if we've got a final year, what we want to do is make sure that people that actually already have a job in the industry, move this cursor, also have the opportunity to complete the construction management diploma. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an in-work assessment pathway for people that are in work in the construction management diploma currently. So you can start in year 1 in work if you have a job in a construction manager area and work your full way through like an apprenticeship in work, doing your online work and applying your online work and your assessment work to produce the resources and do your learning. So you're able to apply, look at your work and look at the learning at the same time for the full length. Also, and this is one of the things we really like about this model, is if you are not in work, you can enroll in the Standard Construction Management Diploma, right? And then if you get work, you can then drop into the assessment pathway and finish your final year. You can finish the entire construction management diploma without being in work, but you cannot do the final year. You must be in work for that. And that's to ensure that the people have, if it's going to be a degree apprenticeship, or as we call it, career integrated learning, that there is an application there so that you can't go all the way through without actually having some time in work. So when we look at this from a standard delivery perspective, there's a couple of things that we do that make this work for us. So our academic year runs from January to December, we don't have any breaks, so it runs all year round. And in the diploma and probably in the degree as well, we expect that you can enrol at any time. So we have enrolments every month. Second half of the month you enrol, so you can enrol in January, February, March, April, May, June, July. They're standard lengths; they're about 5 months each one. What this does, if we think about the courses that we've got, is we can, as a learner, and I'm in work, and I can see that I have a site planning coming up because we're going to a new site. I can look at all the things that happen in that, and I can apply for and enrol in the program that best suits that piece of work. So there's a bit of flexibility within the confines of the prerequisites. Of course, we've got the prereqs we need to manage. But the idea being that we can enrol at any point, and also when I get really busy in September and October and November, I can just stop. I can finish my work and carry on later on, and I can roll again, on the 20th of December or the 18th of December, and carry on to the next thing. So we're trying to build this, or we will build this with as much flexibility as we can to allow for the workplace as much as possible and the learning to match up. The idea being that the learner and the workplace work together with us to produce, a nice sort of, as much as possible, seamless experience which can be applied. So the idea being that the flexible offering it fits into the workflows that are on site. Now, that's not going to work every time. We realize that. It's not a perfect world and things aren't linear. So there's going to be times at which people can't fit that in. In the first 2 years, they'll be able to nip back into, if they wish, they can go back into the standard offering and carry on that role, then come back down again. So that if they don't do this thing on site, they can then pick that up in the standard offering and then come back down later on as they need to. So you're not tied into one or the other. There's some movement in between. Why is this important? Well, if you think about supply and demand in a workforce, when there's low demand, you don't, people can go all the way through their degrees and diplomas and then finally get into employment. When the demand's really high, at some point during the learning cycle of getting the degree, the person becomes employable because demand is really high. So they'll be able to go from an out of work or standard delivery model into an in-work model at that point. And so you get a demand-driven employment, which says during this 3-year period, or hopefully the first 2 years, I'll be able to go into employment and carry on my work. Likewise, if I lose employment because there's a downturn within the first 2 years, I can still carry on my studying and go back up into the standard model. So you can start the diploma without being in employment, but we expect that you will be employed at some point during that time. If you are not, and if you can't gain employment because there's a significant downturn or for whatever reason you can't find it, you still are able to graduate with a really good diploma, which is in demand. So the idea being there is you can slip in and out of the modes until the final year. And the final year must be workplace because we really want people to get that experience. And that in the final year, we've also got some big grunty research things that require you to actually be on site and apply things. So we want to be a little bit careful about that. And it's a deliberate structure. And there was a reasonable amount of debate with NZIOB about the final year because they were sort of saying at times, we want everybody to have full flexibility, but they must have experience. And then in the end, they said, we'll just make the final year work compulsory. I'm actually going to move my cursor again. There you go. So there's some design considerations. These are not all the design considerations, and they're not all the factors. They're just the ones which are front of mind for me at the moment. One of the things when I worked in the WBL world is we used to get a lot of feedback from the employers saying the administration of running an apprentice is hideous. We don't want to do it. So what we're doing is we're focusing as much as practicable right? As much as practical, we're going to try and keep the employer load to a minimum. So they're going to verify assessments as they need to, and we'll manage, manage as much of that as we possibly can. And the other part that we're hopefully trying to get is that enrolment requires an alignment to the workflows. And we're hoping that the Econgo is going to be able to drive that themselves and say, actually, this is what I need to do. I think in likelihood, for the person that's been working in construction sites for a while, they'll be able to do that. For people that are new, they're not going to be able to do that. So we're going to have that conversation and say, okay, at some point in this 3-year build on this side of this 2-year build on this side, you're going to see these things. When are they happening? And start aligning the courses, prerequisites, recognised first, the courses in an order in which that they can actually get the experiences they require. We're going to automate as much of the administration as possible. If I get my way, we'll have a nice little app that'll automate verification and all those bits and pieces. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll try really hard. And where possible, we want to use a portfolio of evidence. The reason for that is that we want really rich data to come in. We want to be able to see what the person is doing, and we want them to underline that or give it strength by doing a presentation or some other live scenario yet. I don't want to say you can only do a presentation, but what we want to do is we want that person to go, here's what I've learned, here's how I've learned it, and this is what I now understand, supported by a portfolio. So the portfolio of evidence, which we're just going through the design parameters now. So we have to set up a portfolio tool. We don't actually have one. So we have to design one. But what we're going to do here, it's a portfolio of evidence which is linked really strongly to the learning outcomes, right? So these are the things you need to be able to demonstrate, and we're going to make that link obvious and really clear. And within the portfolio of evidence, we're going to make links to content that you may want to refer to in case you've forgotten it. Don't forget you need to do these things. So there's a really strong link to the learning outcomes and the evidence you're providing. So hopefully it's nice and clear. And the design factors, one of the things that we need to do is privacy and record keeping. So you're going to get proprietary information gathered during assessment that we need to manage. The last thing we want is somebody taking a photograph of something or recording a video that then goes viral, and then bosses really hates us as a consequence. So we're going to be really careful of that, so that the information is held. That's all about having policies and having agreements with the organisation so they fully understand the ways in which we're going to manage their information. The other thing we've got to consider is data bloat. We're talking, possibly hundreds, if not thousands of people over a period of time coming through, filling in a portfolio, uploading videos, doing all those things. So that's almost unavoidable. So we need to figure out how we're going to manage our portfolios, where we're going to store the data once it's gone, once somebody's graduated. So we can't get rid of it. We have to hold it, but we don't want to be holding it on our servers because then you just get huge quantities there. So we need to figure out how we're going to manage that. And a lot of that's about the design of the portfolio itself. How do we set it up so that we gather the information in succinct bites that is still meaningful? It's not just a snapshot. It has meaning. It's linkable, but we don't gather in the 30-minute video that only has 30 seconds of actual that is required. Yeah. And that goes to marking as well. What we don't want is markers to sit there for 20 minutes going through all this stuff to catch the last minute. So what we've got to do is manage that portfolio really well. And that's a key piece of work. It's a balance between making something which is coherent and makes sense, but also doesn't, bloat right up. So it's a real trick actually. It's going to be more expensive to run. Our initial estimates, which Brendan will be getting shortly, does show an increase in costs. An increase in cost for design, an increase in cost for academic staff. We're going to have more administrators because we need to manage the placements, and we're going to have higher marking costs because we've got richer data. We're not going to get standardized assessments come in with a few sentences written in there. The marker's going to be able to go, yes, Right? What we're going to need to do is figure that out. So it's going to cost more money. All of this. So we're going to need to change our enrollment system. We're going to need to create a portfolio. We're going to have to change our LMS to manage this a little bit. It requires a system design change to make the new model work. We've got to make sure that that system design change is agnostic. So we don't design something for the program so that it can be applied. We do actually do work-based stuff already. We do a lot of it actually, and one of the big places in initial teacher education. And so we have to manage work placements there. It's a huge piece of work to manage that, and we need to build that system. So that system, we're hoping we're going to back engineer for construction management and anything else that we go after that. So that's basically that we're a little further through than that, but that's the sort of stuff I'm quite happy to share where we're at the moment in thinking. If I can make the cursor move, there we go. So thank you. Happy to take questions.
Mike, I just have one question. I guess, and maybe I missed it, but is there a particular platform you're thinking for your e-portfolios?
Not yet. Have you got a good idea? So we were
No,
thinking
no,
about using Mahara or creating our own one because we're a Microsoft shop, so we could create our own one using SharePoint. There's a bit of a link into our LMS, which is our own LMS. We need to manage as well, and also we have. You guys may not be aware, but our markers are not our academic staff. We have a separate marking group, so they have a separate system, and we have industry people come in to mark. So we don't necessarily have dedicated markers. Well, we do have dedicated markers, but they come in and mark stuff. So there's a different system there. So we need to make all of that align as well. So it's quite a big, hairy beast, actually, but we need it for more than just this application. Yeah.
Yeah. My thoughts about e-portfolios is they are often in the literature seen as a powerful way of tracking learning. You really want to be into it 100% in order to do portfolios. If portfolios are sort of done, I don't want to use the word half-assed, but not done to the thorough extent, it doesn't tend to work so well. So you've got to like really be right into it. That would be my suggestion on that one. And as for platforms, Mahara is the open source one that we have in New Zealand. You need some support staff around that. The other one that comes to mind, and there will be more, the other one comes to mind, and they've been pushing it way into New Zealand a bit, and that's PebblePad. PebblePad is, from what I understand, a very good product. Also a bit more expensive, and that's often the part that puts people off. But they've been pushing quite significantly into New Zealand, and they've been wanting some showcase examples to use, so that are quite enthusiastic at the moment. So if you wouldn't thinking of going down that path, I've got a couple of good contacts to be in touch.
Yeah. Great. I remember PebblePad when it came out years ago, and I haven't looked at it since, to be honest. So it's not my area; somebody else is looking after that. But there's a big team in behind this, including Esther on page. Hannah.
Yeah, I really like the 2 years and then into work model where it's flexible in that first 2 years. And we're in the process of setting up a graduate diploma in asset management where it has that same requirement that you have to be in work to be in the program. But one of the things we're grappling with is what happens when somebody is in work and enrolls in the program and progresses partway through, and then for whatever reason is no longer in work, or their workplace context shifts and they have a new manager who says, actually, you can't have access to that stuff for study, where there's stuff that interrupts the kind of in-work component of that final year. Do you guys have particular insights or plans about how you're hoping to deal with that?
One of the big things we've got in our back pocket is the flexibility in timing. So we can say that, you can. So our learners typically, there's no typical learner for us. But what happens is our learners often can take pauses. They can stop, and they can stop for a year and then start again, and that's okay. That's okay for us, and that's actually somewhat normal. And also they can double stuff up. So if they don't have the opportunity in their final year, So if the opportunity dries up or disappears during the final year,
Mhm.
then they would need to pause until that opportunity came back again at this
Okay, but
stage.
you're not planning to have effectively a backup option where you have things that you can provide. Like they will have to pause until they have a workplace context live
So
again.
kind of drafty at this stage because we're not
Mm.
sure. So Esther and I have had a conversation with a number of other people saying that what we want to do is we want to pick the assessment model that best suits the learning outcome.
Mhm.
And if the learning outcome is best suited by an exam, then let's pick that.
But what learning outcome is that?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
an extreme example. So what we're
Yeah.
not going to do is doggedly apply because
Mhm.
it's some sort of ideologue way that you're going to do it this particular way.
Mm.
What we're going to do is we're going to say, what's the best way to do this? And that may provide, and I suspect it will, provide opportunities which are not linked to the workplace for the final year. It depends on what content we absolutely rely on in the end. So that depends on what industry tells us what they want to see.
My preference would be actually that we had an ODFL path that's that in behind, so learners don't get disadvantaged. But I think at the moment, really what we're testing here is the demand for this work integrated model, would it be well understood and would it be well patronised? With all new things, it's a difficult start and messaging is hard to get through. But in New Zealand, where our businesses are actually relatively small, and we're looking out here and jobs are falling and the construction industry is got some big question marks, particularly in the domestic building of homes sort of front. So if you're a developer in that space, that may have been paused. So from wearing an academic hat, I would like to see an alternative path because I never like to see learners disadvantaged. But we're at the stage here where we're understanding what is this about, and do you back hours into a degree in a workplace rather than define it hard into outcome with an assessment. At the moment we ask for that in engineering, even if they're not in the on the asset management path. You need to be able to do a work project. It is capstone parts. So
the engineering development project paper at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So I sort of feel like I'd prefer to see two paths, but this is your development, not mine. So I will write what I'm told. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's right. And Helen, maybe in the future when we have the what questions did NZQA ask you session, can give us some feedback on how concerned they were about that kind of switch in learner context. I just had one other really quick question. Is you said that it's going to be more costly to deliver this way, and that's obviously in comparison to Open Polytech's standard operating model.
Yes.
Do you have a sense of where that would sit compared to a model where it is a more traditional, you're in class in a physical campus?
No, because our model is so bespoke, and the comparisons I've been making has been with that. No, it would be a guess if I did it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, it would be a guess, and I'm not, I don't really know. I would imagine, that there's so many parameters because you're not getting the same level of flexibility. If you're running semesterized courses, there's a whole bunch of things that come in at that point, which create, other blockages. So it'd be difficult. Actually, you'd need to do the analysis, I think.
It's a very fair answer. Thank you so much.
Emelina.
Hi, Mike. I have two questions.
Yep. Oh, you're on mute, Emelina.
Somehow it's just decided to be on mute. Right, sorry. I want to ask you two questions. One is built on Hannah's questions about the cost model. So based on what you're saying that this cost model will be more than what you're currently delivering, but I'm sure that you have done some sort of a business analysis and still see this will be a good investment in a way that compared to the demand from the industry, or is that too early to say that?
We've done some real rough, it's rough, and it looks like it's going to be okay. It's okay. It's not great. It's going to be
Right.
okay. But the analysis, part of the one of the Open Polytechs thing is that we take a bit of risk every now and again. We're willing to give things a go because we think that we think, and as happens previously when we started a new product, we get some enrolments to start with in reasonable numbers, and so creating the thing sometimes brings enrolments in as well. Based on the standard conversion factors of people going from the diploma to the degree, we would be okay currently just on those numbers. Um, but it'd be a near thing type thing. But we believe that it's a good thing to do, and so that's why we've committed to going down this pathway to do it. So it's not always about making sure you make absolute money. We need to make sure that we're breaking even, and at this stage, we're headed for a break even on this particular thing at this stage.
Cool.
Not including capital costs, of course. So system development, upfront capital costs, development costs, they all need to be amortized in there. So we'll see how that breaks out. And that analysis is underway actually right now. So we're unsure.
Cool. Thank you for that insight. My other question is more about the third year has to be the students who currently working in the industry. And I'm not 100% sure that how's your current level 6 diploma works for international students. Are they allowed even to re-enroll your current level 6?
We currently don't enrol international students in any of our programs. That's not quite right, Esther, correct me, but we don't have international students generally.
Well, if you're an international student, you would have to be here in New Zealand for most of them.
Right. But what I'm trying to ask to the further question is, for the level 7s, are you looking at to take any international students?
It's not something we've considered. We could. We don't have a lot of international students currently. It's mostly domestic market.
Yeah, at the moment, I would say they would have to be here in New Zealand, because how would we develop that relationship with the employer for a start, and how would we, quality assure the assessment of any workplace? They would have to be, I mean, there's a new market of people who are, not New Zealand residents or citizens who are here for the purpose of working on a construction site, who perhaps need to credentialise for some reason. That's a different gig from someone being, in Singapore wanting to do a program. So I would say no to the international, certainly no outside of New Zealand, internally perhaps, but a degree is a long thing. I mean, unless they were coming in and, perhaps only doing that 1 year because they had come in with, advanced standing, well, would you finish it in time? I don't know that you would. I would say the vast majority of Open Poly learners are part-time. They are in industry. They're over 35, and they are women. They're not men. Okay, so that's the profile of a typical OP learner.
Cool. That's all my questions. Yep. Thank you.
Helen.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Nice model. I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit more about the employer's responsibilities? So are you anticipating that all of the learning will happen naturally and experientially because of the nature of the job, and the employer's primary responsibilities around assessment and evidence, or is there some requirements around teaching?
We don't expect there'll be any requirements around teaching for the employers. I don't expect that's the case. We do expect the employers to provide the Ākonga with the ability to experience the things they need to experience. There are deliberate acts of teaching that we will undertake, so there's still content and material that the learners will need to engage with online as others do. So there's the deliberate acts of teaching. There's to say, there is learning in the workplace, but we will be supplying some learning as well to support that, because we need to point out the things you need to pay attention to. So have you noticed? You'll see these things, and then raise awareness and actually school, because remember, it's a learning process. It's not something that osmotically they're going to pick up. Well, they could do, but then we need to credentialize it afterwards, and it'd be a lot quicker if we give them some guidance on what to focus on. And the idea with the employer is that they engage in providing the experience and verification.
Okay, cool.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that NZQA were particularly interested in asking us was around minimum number of hours required to be at work.
All right.
Do you have a minimum number of hours and a maximum number? They were thinking about max as well.
No, but we will do now.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you. What tip? hadn't thought that far ahead. But yeah, I think we will do now, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the heads up, Helen. Yeah, so the development is trundling away. We're doing the we're a lot. Some parts are a bit further than I'm actually showing at the moment, but it's still very drafty. And other parts we're still trying to work out. We do need more integration with our stakeholders, and that'll be underway soon, I think. Rachel, did you have a question for me?
Yeah, just a quick one, because it sounds like you're doing more like a 2+1 model. So 2 years, first 2 years is the standard unified program. Is it fair to say that you're not planning on adding any in-work? So in-work could just be assessments are rewritten to bring in the real world scenarios, for example, and then the final year will be the degree? Or, because I'm just thinking for our students that have done diploma that may want to continue, if we don't offer the third year, that they can naturally just come over to you for their third year. Yeah,
I forgot to mention that. So anybody that's done the construction management degree elsewhere, the same with the diploma, anywhere else, will be able to start in.
Perfect.
As long as they have a job. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the level 5 and level 6 space, are you planning on? So you got the in-work flexibility there. Is that allowing students just to have? So there'll be 2 assessment models, for example, one standard assessment, and then the other one will be for students who could opt to do that one because they have a workplace scenario that's been approved by the tutor, for example, to do instead. So they'll still be following the same sort of, getting the same sort of level of information or have access to it, like you said.
Yeah, everybody has the same amount of access. So we're using the same core material for the, so you're right at the hairy edge of where our discussions are at the moment. There's discussions at the moment about, and this links back to the portfolio tool and how we manage that, and links into content. So and this is a discussion that's not decided, but it's a bit thinking about how we manage our content delivery. So rather than being content forward than assessment, being assessment forward followed by content. But content as is required. That may or may not work. We don't know. So but it is essentially that we're not writing any new material. Famous last words. We don't think we're writing any new material for the construction management diploma because it's all fresh and new and it's all working really well. So why would you not? The information's the same. What we might do is create sort of shortcuts to key points that relate to bits of assessment. So you get the learner that opens up the assessment and looks at that and then looks at the material the other way around. We've got to make sure that they get the information the right way around.
They can identify the gap, where their gaps are early, essentially.
Yeah, they can identify their gaps. So one of the things I didn't mention is if somebody enrolls in that pathway, there will be a conversation with them and an academic staff member or somebody like that, and the employer to say, these are the things you need to know and see and do. And these are the important bits. Are you going to see that? And so that raises awareness at that point, even at the construction management, at the diploma level. So it's pretty clear what their expectations are. And, we don't know whether points, the difficult points are going to be, well, we've got an idea because we're running it at the moment, but there'll be points at which we say, actually, make sure you pay attention to this bit because everybody misses this, and we'll be able to give that sort of coach and guidance at that point, which says, here's some information. And we may modify our content to manage that a bit better you know, you can only get so far, then you must do this bit because everybody gets it wrong. Then you pop back out. We don't know what we're going to do yet.
Yeah, it's
Because we don't know
tricky.
where those barriers are.
Yeah, we're having a similar conversations on our side because obviously we're doing a QS, which is closely connected to the construction management. So you monitoring engagement with in-work students and actually checking that they've got relevant industry roles is another big like a pinch point for us. Have you thought about the resources you're going to put into that to make sure that those students actually meet the criteria?
Yeah, that's the big part of the increased costs.
Yeah.
Is that our current model doesn't support a lot. It's not that it doesn't do it now, but it doesn't support a lot of interaction between the learner and the academic staff member, and not at all with the employer generally. But we need to amp that up. So there's an administrative load. There's there'll be more academic time per learner to do this work. I don't like it. It is more. It's not twice the amount.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the other nut to crack for us is being a national provider as opposed to a regional provider. When we're talking about, workplace interactions, it's getting that coverage from, top of the north to the bottom of the south and every place in between. So that in and of itself is a wider spread. So it's not like perhaps being a regional polytechnic where you've got multiple sites and you've got multiple towns and things going on, and that's complex enough. But when you've got a full spread, that's going to be the nut to crack. And also, just there was a conversation about how will people know. The other expensive part of this is the individual plan. So there has to be quite a in-depth, and it will have to be an academic staff member who will be teasing out where you're at, what you've done, what your opportunities are, and linking, because ultimately that person must meet the graduate outcomes.
Yeah,
they've got to meet it. Whether they probably won't go down to minutiae in individual courses and individual learning outcomes, but there will be an overall aim. That the courses are collections of aims. You've got to that point. So we need to see that it happens, and from an audit point of view, NZQA needs to see that whatever we put in the program is being met and that we have evidence to back it. So what we want to do, and having the mechanisms to be able to do it, that's the bigger question, I feel. And I know we're all in the same place in vocational education. That's what we want to do, and what we're constrained to tends to be our issue. It's our ongoing fight, I think.
Yeah. No, you answered that well. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so each learner will have a plan that says these are the things that you're going to do, and the plan may be for the full 3 years. So if they're on a large multi-story site that's going to be 5 years in construction, they may be able to do the whole thing there on their entire degree. But then that doesn't work for somebody that's doing domestic stuff, which is 3 to 4 months per site. So each individual learner, and that's just for construction, but there's civil as well that sits in there. So, each individual learner, we're going to need to look at their circumstance and go, okay, this is the best pathway for you. Yeah. And there may be some learners that actually this is not a good pathway for you to do this approach.
I would just mention too that, again, the vast majority of our learners are part-time learners. Okay, so they probably wouldn't be completing a degree in 3 years and working full-time on a construction site. I'm finding that a little bit an interesting thought. So like most degrees, there'll be an 8-year max on completion. So and I would expect that if they were starting from the beginning and going to the end, there would be a lot of learners that would be in the space. But I think a bit like engineering for us, most people come in with the advanced standing. They already have the New Zealand diploma, and so they come in with that advanced standing and they move from there, and we usually have them with us more in the vicinity of 3 years to complete the degree, because they have, life happens to them and they have to stop and then they start.
Yeah, I think you're bang on in terms of our experience of running our our degree apprenticeship program, that most of the extra time and cost is actually around that individual path and individual relationships, and that is we're not as streamlined as we want to be in that space. We're still working it out. But the flip side of it is that you tend to have, in our experience and in the literature, really good retention rates, because nothing is a problem that they're trying to solve on their own. They've got that connectivity with you, and you have that flexibility and that responsiveness. So yeah, even though it takes longer and it takes a bit more resource, you actually have more people going the whole way through your program in the end, which is a balance there. I see Rachel's got a question. I'm just also mindful of the time, that we don't want to kind of hold people past their next obligations. So Rachel, go.
My question might have a very quick answer, or it could be delayed. A question for Mike. Have you thought, or Hannah as well, if you've tried and tested it, is there a ratio for, say, one person, because obviously you're building that relationship, so one ASIMS academic staff member to how many people have you factored in your budget, or is that too soon? Out of curiosity more than anything. How many people under one bucket?
We've done some modelling, and I'm not really comfortable to share that at this stage, but it's more than 20, but it's less than 200.
Oh wow, okay.
Well,
You'll be
if I
dealing
could
with
jump
different
in there,
numbers. Yeah.
Apologies to interrupt, because we did a lot of work around this. What is the project number of work placement students for a WIL coordinator? And data from University of Waterloo, which is an absolute machine, they do about 150 students per full-time staff member. But this is non-academic staff, but that's a pretty high number, I think. They've got a well-oiled machine. We've found from our own program, probably about 100 or 120, depending on how easy the sector is a more realistic number. So if you aim for 100 and then start tinkering around there, I think you get pretty close to what an academic staff and relationship builder can cope with.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're in the same vicinity, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that lines up with what, approximately with what we're doing as well. Our ratio is slightly lower because all of our staff are also teaching. So, but it's the same if you took a full-time F. Yeah.
A lot of it depends on the systems that we manage to implement.
Yeah.
If we're good quality systems, then it can be quite efficient.
Also, you get big efficiencies where you've got multiple people from one workplace.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a great thing to be able to aim for here.
The only other suggestion I would bring into that is consideration around academic staff and their use of time. Relationship building, I'm thinking more of a university context, it's not often a good use of their time, and they're not always that great at it either. Sometimes it's better to have specialized people in that space. That's what we've found, and they cost a lot less for your budget as well. So there might be a bit of a balance there to find.
Yeah.